Hey, so been seeing a lot of worrying things around the rise of the far right at the minute. We're seeing Reform UK surging in the polls. We're seeing the rhetoric change, dog whistles to the far right on a daily basis, talking about white lives matter, two-tier policing. We're seeing the biggest ever attack on the LGBTQ plus community with the direct attack on trans rights. We're seeing trans people excluded from public services, but also things like parkrun and just these horrendous lobbies raising legal actions left, right and centre, the government capitulating. We're seeing the demonisation of migrants on a daily basis, not just from our media, but from social media, which is twisted and distorted to present a far-right, awful, horrid view of the world. It's quite a worrying time, and it's a troubling time to find ourselves in, but I want to take a minute just to think about how we got here, because that might help us realise how we can get out of this. So there's three things I want to look at today. One is politics and political parties and some of the decisions they've made, which has led to where we are. And the second thing I want to talk a little bit about is collective power and collective movements, largely the trade union movement and what we could have done better as a movement to avoid being here. And then thirdly, the media, social media, which I talk quite a lot about anyway. But let's look at politics. So we have a Labour Party that was founded to represent the people. It was founded to represent workers' struggle, collectivised power of the working classes. That includes unity. That includes how we as people own and share the resources of this country. So that's things like the example that we have at the moment that can remind us of this is the NHS, which we all love, we all share it, it belongs to all of us, we're proud of it. Now, we can't say that when it comes to other infrastructure, such as our utilities, our transport, because it's all been sold off. So rather than us paying taxes and all paying into a collective pot and using that for all of us, we all pay into that pot, but it's being given to billionaires, it's being given to foreign organisations and companies who own our railways, who own our utilities, our energy. Our bills are going up and it's becoming much more commercialised rather than collectivised. So we think about our individual rights. We think I'm being ripped off, I should get another company or I should invest in solar panels, rather than going, hang on, this is our money, why are we not owning the benefit of it? So it's a way of breaking down that social contract. And this has happened for years and years and years. We're pushing individual consumerism over collective community kind of politics. Now, collective community politics makes me and my neighbour allies. We're on the same side. We're working together to build our community. But when you start to focus in on the individual, you create a gap where you can start to turn people on each other. We've all seen that famous cartoon where Rupert Murdoch points at the immigrant with the cookie on his plate and says, "You've got no cookies because of that guy, mate," whilst he's actually holding about 1,000 cookies himself. Now, this is how pursuing kind of a corporate consumerist agenda, an individualised consumerist agenda, has weakened the Labour movement, because the Labour Party should be about the people, the workers who founded it, the working classes. But instead, they're chasing corporate donations. They're chasing that consumerist ideology over the people. And this has weakened Labour's politics for the last decade or decades, really. And that breakdown of the social contract has weakened the collective identity of us as people, where we stand united, whether we are black, white, gay, straight, disabled. It makes it easier to be divided because they say there's scarce resources and you're actually in competition with your neighbour for them, which we know isn't true, but it's a rhetoric that is causing division. And this is a failure of Labour to combat that by pursuing these neoliberal ideologies. So that's one of the first things I wanted to mention, which is really important. But then you've also got this moral failure from Labour politicians who, when push comes to shove, have abandoned their principles of equality. And what they've done is, when the going gets tough, they run away. So if we look at the example of trans rights, what we had was politicians, Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, who were publicly supporting these policies. They were at rallies, they were at marches, at trans pride events, until the going got tough. As soon as there became political pressure, they abandoned the trans community. As soon as these far-right lobbies, so funded by kind of far-right Christian pro-life anti-gay rights movements in America, have been funding the anti-trans lobby here in the UK, and as soon as they came under pressure, they capitulated and backed down and threw trans people under the bus. This is a moral failure. So you combine Labour's chasing of corporate donors alongside their moral failure to have any backbone when it actually civil rights come under attack. This is the biggest political failure. And this is where the Green Party is stepping in at the minute, because there has been, or felt like there hasn't been, that mass movement of people that can really challenge inequality and challenge the system, that uses oppression as division to kind of keep us turning on each other, rather than recognising actually it's the bosses who are the ones making the decisions. It's the establishment, it's the elite who are running this country, selling off everything, whilst we squabble amongst ourselves. So this lack of political movement is the first thing that I wanted to highlight. The second thing is the broader movement, the trade union movement. I'm going to use as an example because this is the best example of collectivised action. So what we've seen is over the last decades, like, the trade union movement exists so that workers can come together and realise that they are stronger than the bosses. That's the basic principle. But what we've seen over the last decades is the trade union movement has kind of sold out collective power in the workplace and kind of gone for using the money, the sub money from members, to kind of corporate lobbying and embedding itself within the establishment. It's just got different aims. Trade union officials, highly paid trade union officials, don't share the same material conditions as the workers, so their aims are different. And rather than building workplace power, what we've been doing is building these corporate structures across, the UK that can lobby governments and speak and cozy up to ministers, which is not necessarily what workers want. So now what we've got is, instead of having strong trade unions that embed education, political education, unity, solidarity, camaraderie, we don't have those structures there that enable workers to unite against oppression. So this is just creating more space in which the far right can come in, can take advantage of those people feeling isolated, feeling angry, because things aren't working for them, and feeling vulnerable, and take advantage of that to turn them on each other. This is where unity and class consciousness is so important. So how do we refine that class consciousness then today? And I think that is the forefront of equalities issues, because when we look at workforces, so precarious workforces are quite often migrant based. We've got public sectors which is led by women who aren't paid fairly compared to their male counterparts, and we still have men overrepresented in leadership and female professions. When we look at the fight for equalities, that is where that ability to kind of collectivise can come back in. That is the forefront of class consciousness. That's what unites us against the enemy, because whether we have different colour of skin, different religions, whether we're differently abled, we actually have way more in common, that we are oppressed, we are kept down by the people who are running the country, and that's what keeps us together. So it's really important that we kind of rebuild trade unionism back around the workplace, back around collective action, and back around unity and togetherness. So that's the second thing I wanted to mention. And then the third thing is that before I do that, there's another thing about the trade union movement is that with that unity and strength, we can call out things better. So when there are racist policies, such as the indefinite leave to remain policy by Labour, we can actually challenge it and stop it, because we have the collective power to do so. So that's the other thing about the weakening of the trade union movement. And finally, I've talked about media a lot, and I'll link to other videos and articles where I talk about how social media and the media are forwarding this far-right rhetoric. But Elon Musk didn't buy Twitter for no reason for £44 billion. That was an investment for him. And actually, Elon Musk is a far-right white supremacist, and he uses Twitter on a daily basis to make it seem like hegemonic views across Britain, across America, are more far-right than they are. So you've got this amplification of far-right voices, of far-right influencers, but also this army of bots that are supposed to make it seem like all these people care as strongly about these issues when they don't. That's to move the Overton window, and that's to encourage people who have racist or homophobic views, but in the past have known to keep them to themselves because they're not right, are now sharing them, and it kind of leads to this gradual radicalisation of people in communities. And we don't have a strong enough media, like not that social media, our media isn't strong enough, and they're complicit, because our media is owned by foreign billionaire oligarchs who want to keep us divided and fighting each other, so that we don't realise that they're not paying their taxes and that they're actually manipulating us and selling off everything we own. So how do we challenge that? And it is hard, but we do need to stay in that space, because when we cede that ground, the far right take it. And this comes back to my initial point around wanting to be a pacifist in the culture wars. I realise I can't, because by ceding that ground, I'm allowing the far right voice to fill that space. I'm allowing hateful rhetoric to win. That's why we can't be pacifists in the culture wars. It was Stuart Mill who said, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And that's a paraphrase, but it is true. And that's why we need to stay on social media. It's why we need to call out racism, call out homophobia, call out anti-Semitism, call out ableism, call out any hatred or discrimination whenever we see it. That is our duty, because if we don't, people think it's normalised or okay. If we don't call it out, they think it's acceptable. So is that enough on its own? No. But if we rebuild our trade union movements, if we build our politics based around people and fairness, and for me that is the Green Party at this moment, we have a chance to start challenging this drive to the far right. But we have to look at ourselves, because the far right wouldn't exist, they wouldn't be powerful, they wouldn't be demonising all the different marginalised groups they are now if the left hadn't let it happen. So we need to take some responsibility, and we need to get organised, we need to learn our lessons, we need to base our power on people, not on donations, because when you're based on donations, you're always earned and donations can stop. But people power cannot be taken away from us. We need to learn our lessons, we need to rebuild, we need to organise, and we need to recognise that the equalities fight is our fight, is everyone's fight. And that means people like me, a white man, need to recognise our privilege, we need to understand oppression and learn about it, and we need to realise that actually to protect each other is the only way to protect ourselves. So the racist policies against my colleagues, that is my fight. The transphobic attacks on my trans colleagues, that is my fight. We need to unite, and together we can win.